Hi, I'm Emily, and welcome back to this week's News Bytes. This week's newsletter is called Passover Deliverance of Freedom. Will we get our freedom back? What do the scriptures say? The meeting was also called Passover Deliverance of Freedom because when you think about it, Passover is all about freedom. So I'll just get started reading the newsletter, and I won't read all of it, but I'll read the parts that kind of pertain to what I was thinking after I watched the meeting, and then, talk about it a little. From Eliyahu. Shalom, friends. The coronavirus is a merciless killer. Right now, America is the country with the most reported cases and the most reported deaths. I say reported because there's a lot of reason to believe China's numbers were grossly underreported. Be that as it may, America is currently suffering more cases and more deaths than any other country. We just passed 20,000 death marks, almost all of them within about 6 weeks. That figure is far less than it would have been if it were not for the heroic effort by the citizens of the country to deny the virus access to more bodies. As contagious as this monster virus is, one can only imagine how many more people would have died by now had aggressive mitigation efforts not been undertaken. Even so, 20,000 deaths is a chilling number in so short a time, underscored by the specter of the dead, stacked 3 high in continuous rows being laid out in mass graves in New York City. It is a gruesome and tragic reality for thousands of the friends and family of the untimely dead. Nothing like this really has ever been seen in my lifetime here. So, right now, people are sitting in their rooms, apartments, and homes as they have for weeks now, wondering what comes next, worrying about the future. It is not only the coronavirus and the economy that they're worried about. They wonder, will I ever really get my freedom back? We have all had to give up a lot of freedom to fight this monster virus. Before now, it would have been inconceivable to imagine the government micromanaging our personal lives by decree, right down to how and where we breathe, as has happened and is happening in countries all over the globe right now. This worry about our future is not an empty conspiracy theory or personal nightmare. Since the 21st century began, we have seen a number of global shocks leaving mass ripples around the world that are still felt today. 9/11 comes to mind. After that day, everything changed forever. The Patriot Act was passed here in America that set the stage for massive surveillance and tracking of citizens, an entirely un-American denial of privacy and loss of liberty that we have had to live with ever since. Layered over that were the staggering effects of the global economic meltdown of 2008 that saw the banks bailed out on the backs of the working men and women of the world. The aftermath put all of us under a sort of forced labor benefiting only the super wealthy, from which we still have not emerged. By now, we've already been reduced to a slave planet constrained by an invisible cage generated by technology, though many of us don't even know it, because sophisticated technical language is used to cover up the truth. However, being watched and tracked all the time to be exploited and farmed by an elite class, that's the definition of slavery. And now this. What will the aftermath of this look like? Will all the bureaucrats, officials, and tyrants willingly relinquish the unprecedented levels of social control they have come to wield? Tyranny is very efficient. Do we really think that they will just give up that power? Likely they'll be forced to let some up, but as with 9/11 in 2008, there will be a residual layer of control, layered over the earlier loss of freedoms, constricting our lives even more. In your heart of hearts, you already know that, which is why you are worried about your loss of freedom, understandably. However, in the meeting, even though we are worried about a loss of freedom, Eliyahu brought up quite a few articles from around the world where congregations and churches have actually still defied the quarantine order and the gathering order, not to gather in large groups, to hold church services, and then subsequently got people sick, and it spread rapidly, of course, from there. And even though we do all value freedom, we all love freedom, that really is a selfish act, and I would hope that most people would know that. The scriptures say concerning the most important commandments, Yeshua says in Mark 12:30-31, these are, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your strength. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. And freedom is great, but if freedom gets in the way of loving our neighbors and we end up compromising them and their health, they could be immune compromised. You just don't know. So why would you even risk it? If you value freedom over the lives of other people, that's not right, and that's not godly, and that's not what the scriptures say. So even though other people might do that, like people who don't believe in God, for churches and congregations who claim to be believers and believe in the Word of God and to believe in His Son, Yeshua, put their own personal freedom first and, say, screw you to the system or whatever. But all these people get infected and then die. And quite a few of these leaders actually who held these services, not quite a few, but I guess I remember a couple of them did get coronavirus and died. That doesn't make God look good either. Like, as someone who believes in God, you represent Him on the earth. And if you're holding services, you can hold services on the internet. You can have your own personal time with Him. You don't have to congregate. And it's not of God to put people's lives in danger. It's just not. Okay? I mean, it does suck, but it's not loving your neighbor. And, he said in the meeting too, that the people are going to remember those who put other people at risk. And did the congregations and the churches who did this really think about being remembered that way, representing God that way? And it's not walking blamelessly either, which we're also called to do in the scriptures in many verses. So, I hate to say this, it really pains me to say this, but freedom is a temporary sacrifice that we have to make, for the good of other people and for the well-being of those around us. And I really hate to say that, because I value freedom, I know you value freedom, but, what really matters? People's lives, that's what matters. Of course the government will take advantage of this power and, they're going to hold on to it as long as they can. And they probably are going to put on more restrictions. But at the same time, prophecy does foretell this kind of change happening. These are the last days. It shouldn't be surprising when really sucky things start happening, because no one said this was going to be easy. But living in the last days isn't easy, okay? Okay, but anyway, I hope I'm not being too offensive or too in your face. I know the majority of people watching this probably don't think the way these pastor leaders did when they put other people's lives in danger. But, this isn't easy for anyone, okay? Giving up our personal freedom, giving up the freedom to go about with our days and do different things. But, like I said, life isn't easy, and living the last days isn't easy either. So, the newsletter basically finishes up with this verse from Luke. Therefore, be watchful all the time, praying that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will happen and to stand before the Son of Man. And the meeting was really good. It was just real. It was just real facts, from the scriptures. It's just a biblical-based view of what's happening. And some people might see it as like lying down, taking it. Well, it's not. But I would encourage you, though, to watch the meeting, kind of see what he says from the scriptures. It's something we just have to know, in our mind and in our hearts. If you love God, if you value your neighbor, you value the commandments. So that's the newsletter. I'll link it down below, and I'll link the meeting on the screen. If you like this video, hit the like button, leave your comments, even if you didn't like what I had to say, and subscribe, and you can watch the meeting. Thanks for joining me.